coworkers, employees, or employers have a spiritual question, have a question about Jesus, will you be the first one they come and talk to? It's a good question. Paul had a lot to say about that. As a matter of fact, it may seem in certain scriptures that it's not relevant for today, but I promise you it is, and we're going to come back to that right after the music.
Well, welcome to our Wednesday night service here at Cross Brand. We're so glad you tuned in with us, and I hope you guys will like and share this so that other people will also be blessed by it. So here we go.
By still waters and to mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Great is your love and justice, God. You use the weak to lead us strong. You lead us in the song of your salvation, and all your people sing along. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. So remember your people, remember your children, remember your promise, oh God. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough. Your grace is enough for me. Yeah, your grace is enough. If I'm reaching down to us, your grace is enough for me. Yeah, I see your grace is enough. I'm covered in your love. Your grace is enough for me.
closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. When my feeble life is o'er, and time for me will be no more, guide me gently, safely o'er to thy shore, dear Lord, to thy shore. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Let me be filled with kindness and compassion for the one for whom you loved and gave your Son for humanity. Increase my love. Help me to love with open arms like you do. A love that erases all the lies and sees the truth. So that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. Oh, how He loves us. From the homeless to the famous and in between. You formed us and you made us carefully. 'Cause in the end, we're all your children. So help me to love with open arms like you do. A love that erases all the lies and sees the truth. So that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. Let all my life tell of who you are, and the wonder of your never-ending love. Let all my life tell of who you are, 'cause you're wonderful and such a good Father. Let all my life tell of who you are, and the wonder of your never-ending love. Let all my life tell of who you are, 'cause you're wonderful and been such a good father. Oh, you're wonderful and such a good father. So help me to love with open arms like you do. A love that erases all the lines and sees the truth. So that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love. Oh, even in just a smile, they would feel the Father's love.
So you probably wouldn't expect your preacher to be talking about your behavior at work, but Paul had a lot to say about it. My question to everyone, my question to myself, whether I work in this job or another job, is can we in clear conscience have a conversation about Jesus with our coworkers and our employees and our employers? Can have we embraced the idea of Christianity being full-time? I taught school for a lot of times, and I saw kids on Sunday and then I saw them on Monday, and they was two different kinds of kids. It's almost like there's an on-off switch for some folks. I can behave like a follower of Jesus anywhere but work. And so, again, my question I pose to you is one of the greatest indicators of our faith is what our coworkers, what our employees, what our employer seems to think about us when it comes to spiritual things. So, I'm going to read some stuff to you tonight just real quick. And it's kind of weird that I would be saying what I'm about to say in these trying times, because Paul uses the S word, slavery. Because, slavery was a terrible practice. It's always been a terrible practice, but it was a practice in the New Testament. And never once did any Christians promote in Scripture the idea of slavery. But here's what happened. It was embedded in the culture and in the society and in the politics. And so, Paul, a lot of people ask me, why in the world didn't Paul talk about slavery? It's because Paul had a limited time and space on this earth. He knew his time was limited, and so he wanted to change hearts and not politics. And so in this particular scripture, we see two directions, two ways that we can apply this. No, not slavery. Goodness, no. But it talks a lot about the relationships on a personal level and on a job performance level that I think we can grab hold of. As a matter of fact, he would say something to the employees, right? You ever read this? Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eyes on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. So serve wholeheartedly, he said, as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know the Lord will reward each one of you for whatever good they do, whether they are slave or free. So here's the deal. Paul says, a lot of you guys are the boss, and a lot of you are not in that position. And he said, you know what? But you're part of the same church. You're following Jesus. And so Paul says, instead of there being tension there, let's behave at work. Let's behave like the one we claim to be following, even at work. And so Paul would say this to employees, and I think this is applicable to employees. He said, number one, work like Jesus is your boss. That means no time wasting. That means no half-heartedness. Paul says, look, serve just like you would obey Christ. He also would say, work hard. Listen, employees, work hard when nobody else is watching. Anybody that's ever taught school, anybody that's ever been a coach knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you have to step outside the classroom for 1 second, they don't work like they do oftentimes when you are watching. So Paul would say work hard even when nobody is watching, because Christianity is a full-time commitment, even at work. He would say, number 3, work with a great attitude. You know who the most contagious and optimistic people on the planet are supposed to be? Followers of Jesus. But yet for some reason we get to work and oftentimes, I know the conditions are not right. Maybe the people setting is not right. Maybe there's conflict. Maybe there's drama. Maybe there's tension. But Paul is saying, look, even in your position, be contagious. Have a great attitude. And fourth and finally, Paul would say to employees, look, work, and this may be something some of you hadn't talked about lately. Work with the mindset that there's a rewards program for doing well. Paul mentioned judgment. I mean, literally is going to mention judgment in these scriptures. And there is an accounting time, whether we are followers of Jesus or not. And I won't have to get into that, but somewhere on the other side of our last breath, there's going to be an accounting. And we may not hear a lot about judgment, but it's in Scripture. Jesus talked about it, and Paul's talking about it now. Pay attention. God is a rewarder. So Paul said those 4 things that are applicable today to employees, but what about bosses? What about employers? Well, you know what? It's interesting. Here's what he says. And masters, treat your slaves in the same way. I should stop right there. Paul is going to say every single thing I said about employees, you employers need to have the same kind of attitude. Jesus is your boss. We're going to work hard when nobody's watching. We're going to have a great attitude. We're going to remember that there's a rewards program. So Paul is going to say, number 1, you employers need to repeat everything I said. There's actually a double addition there. And he says 2 more things. You ready? He says, do not threaten them, since you know that He who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism. Paul says 2 more things to bosses. He says, number 1, repeat. But number 2, don't abuse your position. Don't be abusive in your position. We're all the same. Number 2, or the second thing, is don't forget that we are equals in our Father's eyes. Jesus, he dealt with those knuckleheads called the 12 disciples, right? It was apostles. And some of them had it in their mind that they wanted to kind of outrule or be a little above the other guy. And he had to set them straight and their mama straight. It was a pretty good deal. But even James talks about favoritism and how much our Father dislikes it. So make sure that if we are an employer, a boss, a supervisor, superintendent, whatever you call yourself, please make sure that you understand that you are on the same playing field, the same ground spiritually, the same level, if you're looking for a word, as the people that work with you. I had a boss one time, and one of the sage advice he gave me is he told me, and by the way, we were in church work. He said, but on a social level, you just need to remember, never hang out, never, he didn't use that word, that was 30 years ago, but he said, never, ever become close friends with anybody of lower station than you are. He said, you'll never get ahead in business. Well, you have your opinion, and I'm just going to kind of share Paul's. And he said, just remember, God ain't got no favorites. There's no shining star. We're all the same. So as I close today, I need to drive this home. whatever your context for work is, even if you're self-employed, you deal with people. You may work in the public sector. You may work in, private business. You may be even listening to us. You may be in the military. The question is, whatever the context, however you make your living, if someone thinks of a spiritual question, let's just ask, if somebody has a question about Jesus, are you going to be one of the first persons that come to their mind? Do you have that level of credibility based on your work ethic, based on your attitude, based on your optimism? I hope so. God bless. See you next time.